Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Burrow. Robbie Listella, Drew Shula joining us here for a spring game recap episode, along with some FAU men's basketball offseason updates. Just because it's the offseason doesn't mean the information stops. We're still rolling. The transfer portal is active. Since the last time we've talked to you, we haven't done a podcast since the NIT, so a lot has changed since then. But a lot to talk about as well. Some visits, some positives to go along with the negatives, of course. But Drew, how's it going? It's a little bit since we've had you on here. Spring game was yesterday. What's how you feeling? How's the vibes feeling? What's going on?
It's going well. Yeah, I haven't been on here since I believe we were talking before the conference basketball tournament. So I've just been busy covering some FAU football. You can check that on my page at Drew Shula. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. The spring game was a lot of fun. There's a lot we're going to talk about with that. The vibes were there as they've been all year with new head coach Zach Kitley. It was a great time. A lot of people in the stands. We'll talk on that. So. Yeah, I guess we'll get to it. I won't spoil too much.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It was a great atmosphere. I would say that was probably the most attended spring game I've been a part of in a couple of years. And it was good to see, right? I mean, they did a lot. They moved it from the normal Saturday time to the Friday evening slot in hopes that it would be, an uptick in attendance. And I think it was. The players noticed it so much so that they waved goodbye to the big crowd there at the end, which I thought was a nice touch. So that was cool to see. Good to see the kind of community embrace Kitley. It's tough when a new coach comes in. You never know if people are going to be stuck with the old and worrying that they're just going to be, the same old, or if they're going to be hopeful and hope that, Kitley can make the changes he wants to. And it's good to see early on that the fans were engaged there. But I mean, the performance on the field gave those fans something to cheer about for sure. And I think the big thing that everyone noticed right away was the connection that's been talked about all summer. Caden and Easton Messer, obviously, that's a connection that's 3 years in the making. But one game in, Drew, how are we feeling about that? Do we think that the Caden Messer connection can really be something special here in Paradise?
Well, we've seen it be special already last year. So I mean, both were all Conference USA players. Caden being Conference USA Player of the Year. Easton was the first team All Conference USA wideout. So yeah, absolutely, I think it'll be special. I mean, that's Kitley said it. He said that's going to be a guy we go to quite a bit, and he's absolutely right. I mean, he's going to win from the slot. I asked Caden a little bit about those quick hitters, how it'll be, and he kind of said he does enjoy throwing that 5-yard RPO, and then he turned it into a 60-yard touchdown, Easton Messer, because that's the kind of player he is. He has that ability to run after catch ability that you need to have in the slot to be successful. But yeah, it's going to be a really good connection. But it started off the field. That's what they were talking about because they started. Easton was a walk on at Western Kentucky, and they both had to start up as the threes, the fours, and they kind of worked their way up to the twos, and then last year being starters. So, but yeah, it started off the field. I remember seeing them when we played USF in basketball, walking into the arena together, walking. They parked across the street, so I'm sure they do everything together, and they're going to be a really special duo this year. The Americans definitely going to be on watch with those two.
I've heard multiple people I've heard it on Twitter, and I just hear it as a softball game today, and I heard somebody say it. They're comparing him to Wes Welker, and I think that's a fun comparison to have. I mean, Wes obviously one of the better slot receivers in recent memory, and Easton is looking like that after one. Obviously, you don't want to put too much stock into the spring game, but he turned a couple slants into touchdowns, which I thought is a very intriguing sign. Because if you look at the spring game last year, we were lacking explosive plays. Defense was making some plays last year, but we kind of left the spring game last year with little bit of concern with the offense, and that concern ended up being warranted. Although we could have never expected what unfolded last year, but thankfully that's in the past, and we got to see yesterday a little bit of the future. I was also, I wanted to see a little bit more from the running backs yesterday, Jamari Sands, Xavier Terrell, but I don't really think it's any reason to be concerned. It was a relatively slow day. It was about, I think, 65 yards combined between Sands, Terrell, and Josh Harriet. So only three backs getting touches on the day. Pretty quiet day for the running backs. And Kitley kind of mentioned yesterday was a pass heavy attack, and we may see that at times this season. If the situation calls for it, if they're stacking the box, we're going to air it out. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about the running backs. I don't even necessarily think running back will be a position that they add anyone in the second period. I think we have really two good running backs in Sands and Terrell. Drew, you really are you confident? I am in Sands and Terrell to kind of carry the lead role for running back this year.
I'm 100% confident in those two. They are young, slightly inexperienced. You could say that, but they're not really young. I mean, they're juniors now. We're used to thinking they're young because we were seeing them their freshman year. Sands for redshirted, so I think Sands is a redshirt sophomore. But Xavier Terrell is getting some touches his freshman year. Last year got some touches in the last two games. I wouldn't even say they're inexperienced. I mean, they've had 2 years of reps in practice in the same with the same school, and then they both got a lot of carries in those last two games last year. I still think they actually do add a back in the portal. Just you know, you could definitely add a third guy. I mean, we've seen it before. Even with Larry McCannon and Kobe Lewis, they still like Zuberi Mobley. There's a way to get three on the field, and unfortunately, running backs do get injured. So if one went down, you don't want to have to keep the load on one guy and then have to resort to someone that maybe not be fully ready. So I could see them adding a new guy, but I definitely am confident in those two. I mean, I think the staff thinks those are two young studs.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what kind of develops in the running back pass game. Xavier Terrell obviously has shown he can take short passes to the house, and Sands is going to be a tough guy to take down if they can get him the ball in space. So obviously the playbook was a little bit vanilla. We didn't get to see too much of that, but I know that's going to be a part of the offense, and that'll be intriguing to see. Once we get to kind of fall camp and eventually to Maryland. August 30th will be around the corner soon enough. But also what kind of piqued my interest yesterday was it wasn't just Messer getting involved in the pass game. It was Jabari Smith Jr. It was Caleb Coombs. We saw J.R. Wilson get targeted a couple times on deep balls. Only was able to walk away with two catches on the day, but we saw him, be a feature a little bit. And even tight ends. Martavis Collins had a couple targets. Didn't see too much of Reed McKeska, but are you kind of is it kind of intriguing to you a little bit that this obviously there's going to be times where we're running 4 or 5 wide. How kind of intriguing is it that Caden's able to get these guys involved, that it's not just Messer here in the spring game?
Yeah, I'd love to clarify one thing for maybe some Owls fans that aren't familiar. This won't be a LeJontay Wester in 2023 scenario where he has 110 receptions on the year, and then our next best guy got 50. It won't be like that. Easton will, he might lead the league. He might lead the AAC in receptions next year. But with that being said, it's not going to be some lopsided affair. Assad Wasim was targeted. You mentioned J.R. Wilson, I think, a few times, and some curl routes. That's a route we're going to see a whole lot of with the RPO. They love getting that ball out to the outside on the curls when those corners are playing far off because they got to respect the deep ball too. And yeah, it's really cool. Martavis Collins had the first reception of the day. So, and then, he had a really nice first quarter. He made a few tough catches in the short, quicker game. But yeah, it's really cool. I mean, a guy like Caleb Coombs got involved, who super quiet last year when he came over with his quarterback here. And then Jabari Smith Jr., Dom Henry was targeted a few times. I've heard good things of him in the spring. Only saw one scrimmage, but really excited about that. And then the freshmen in quarter three were getting involved. Michael Calix and Jade Card. But yeah, Caden's going to do a really good job spreading the ball out. That might not have even been one of the times where he really spreads the ball out. That's what Kaylee was saying to us. We thought it was impressive, but um, Easton was slightly dominating the reception share. I think we'll see even more, spatial awareness and spreading the ball out next year, and really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I think I'm going to be interested to see who kind of wins some of these other roles because we obviously it's kind of assumed that Jr. and Easton are going to be in the slot and on the outside, but there's still tons of snaps, 4 or 5 wide receiver sets, and another consistent outside receiver that can still potentially win it. We saw Jay Sean Platt getting some snaps yesterday as well, so there's a ton of guys in this room. BJ Alexander's yet to come back, and that's a guy who I mean, he's been every year, it's kind of he's been right on the borderline of breaking in, getting into that,
Yeah,
consistent snap count. And last year was a tough, unfortunate injury when he was looking to be a starting outside receiver. And so last
mhm.
year's offense, you lose him and EJ Horton on the outside, and there was not enough depth, but I don't think
Can't
that'll be
forget
the
Joe
case.
Young too.
Yeah, and Joe Young. Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't seen a lot of him, and he's probably coming back soon. He was, I believe, he's been out injured as well. So,
yep.
so we'll have. There's just going to be a lot of depth in this room, and I'm excited to see how they utilize it. One room that to me doesn't seem like it has a lot of depth, but it kind of does on the offense is the line. Obviously, can't really put too much in a spring game with the line. They're not going too full force there, but do we think they only really made 2 additions this offseason? Madden Sanker, Vincent Forney. We've seen a little bit of Madden. Vince is still a bit raw from what we've heard from Stephen Hamby. So I feel like offensive line is the one position where, to me, it's glaring. Like, okay, yeah, they're going to bring people in here in the spring. Is that what you kind of see too?
I could see definitely them bringing in at least some competition at a few positions. Because currently, I'd imagine this is somewhat of a combination we see. Jakavian Nonar has been a breakout player. I could see him at left tackle. I could see him and Daughtry Richardson being the tackles, and some form of interior guys being Scarly Jean, Alex Atkovich, Madden Sanker, and a guy that Owls fans might need to get used to because he's going to be a redshirt freshman and he's been getting some reps. Braden Cunningham,
Hmm.
so he's someone that he's been getting a lot of center reps too and guard reps. They're kind of cross training everything to try to find the 5 best guys. I'd imagine within those 6 players, those are the guys that are getting out in the field. Maybe some guys like Forney, Keon Rowe, and then maybe some more interior guys, the young guys like Ethan Profit, and I'd imagine those are some of the guys that you see involved with one of those. I mentioned the 6 names uh, being the starting lineup as of now, but I could 100% see more competition being brought in. Having a lot of linemen is very important in college football. Mentioning injuries, we saw last year kind of a carousel happen. Even our best players like Federico and Andre Lamas and our tackles were getting hurt, so they had to move everybody around. um, so having guys in, having guys cross trained is important. So I can 100% see some competition being brought in.
It's gonna be interesting to see where they go. The spring portal, I believe, it opens 3 days from now on the 15th. So we'll see kind of what unfolds on that on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, that they won the day yesterday. The only quarter they kept track was the fourth, and the defense won. Obviously, don't read too much into that. Don't think, oh boy, here we go, because obviously it was just a good period there for the defense, which you want to see. The offense had their highlight plays. We mentioned the 70-yard touchdown, 30-yard touchdown to Messer twice, but the defense stepped up. I mean, you look at the sack count. Both Lumen brothers had a sack. Josh Roberts had 2 sacks. The freshman and August Salvati had one as well. Antonio Robinson, DB, had one. So,
Hmm. Yep.
um, I mean, that's a pretty productive day from the sack department. Obviously, Robinson coming from the DB room, but in terms of the D line, little, obviously, like we said, can't read too much into it. But do we think this year maybe the D line gets back to being the D line of old for FAU. There's a lot of pieces brought in, and we'll kind of see what that unfolds. But Drew, is there potential in the defensive line room this season?
Yeah, ironically, one of the things I was really looking for in because I was kind of worried about our pass rush coming in. We lose Chris Jones, who was a tenured pass rusher for FAU. There's some other guys that departed that were good pass rushers, like Marlon Bradley was with FAU for a long time. But they were getting after the quarterback. I mean, we were talking O line, but the D line kind of dominated the offensive line, and really the only success on offense for um, the Owls, in that spring game, was when they were going RPO and getting the ball out of their hands quick. So the offensive line, couldn't crumble. But on those drop back third downs, I mean, they were getting after it. You mentioned the guys like August Salvati is someone that our edge rushers coach Brandon Lacey thinks is a really good pass rusher. Eric Brantley, a little more quiet in the spring game, but I know he's been running with the ones and he's been impressive in spring ball. A guy that's been injured that unfortunately he just hurt his knee, so he couldn't play, but he'll be back. Is a guy that we're big fans of, Gavin Schmarcelin, the young. He will be a sophomore from Miami. And then yeah, Josh Roberts, the freshman. I didn't even know he had 2 sacks, but because everyone was getting home, the Lumen brothers from Rutgers. So super impressed with the defensive line. I will say, uh, for maybe if you're listening to this and you were kind of a little more worried about how the offense wasn't, really like, oh, where's the 40-point offense that we're going to bring in? They didn't run motion one time. They didn't hard count the defense. They didn't audible. They didn't do any of that. So um, it was a little more vanilla. The defense is going to usually win in that scenario. So nothing to really be alarmed about. But I definitely think the defensive line was very impressive. For the level that they're at right now, I think they're really getting after it.
A guy who was getting after it for me yesterday, Tyler Stolsky. Obviously, run game didn't have a big day. I think he was a big part of that. And excuse my dog if you're going crazy in the background, but he forced a fumble, and he did that by punching it out. And I just like his knack for the football. Obviously, Jackson Ambush gone, but do we think he's going to be able to kind of step into those shoes without issue?
Without issue, I'm not sure because Jackson Ambush was a really damn good linebacker for the Owls for the last 2 years, making plays, picking off guys like Curtis Rourke, who had a great year at Indiana, will be an NFL quarterback. Playing great games against good offenses. Ambush was super impressive for FAU. We'll definitely miss his contributions. But Stolsky's the most experienced guy in the room. He's coming in with multiple years of experience at Minnesota, playing a lot of special teams. He was a captain for them, so good leader. The media talked to him. He's an energy guy. Stolsky, we should be very excited, to watch him play at FAU. There was 2 big plays from the defense. Notably, there was a pick by Antonio Smith in the first quarter, and then that second quarter, the offense was driving. They were really driving, looking like they were about to score a touchdown. They had the defense on their heels, and Jamar Sands got a handoff, but Tyler Stolsky peanut punched that out like he was Darius Leonard of the Indianapolis Colts, that patented peanut punch, and he punched it out. And then the defense, they came up with it. I think it was Chris Tooley that recovered the fumble. Stolsky's he's going to be an impressive player. He's got the size that'll be able to play in the AAC, and then the guys next to him won't be too shabby too.
It wasn't Chris Tooley. It was
It
Kyle
was
Boyles.
Boylston. It was one of the twos. I couldn't. That's the thing is they roll up the jerseys so I don't see the other number. So I knew it was one of the DBs, Tooley or Boylston.
But I mean, Boylston had himself a day
Yep.
yesterday. I had the fumble recovery, had the INT, had I believe like 5 tackles as well. So he had himself a big day, and then he ran straight over to the baseball game after the press conference. What a guy, right? I mean, he
Mhm.
plays in the game, does press conference, and then goes to baseball. 3 for 3 day for him. But in terms of the DBs, there are some departures there as well this offseason, both at corner and at the safety position. But we see Antonio Smith snag an INT. Cam Goggins looks solid at corner, and Boylston at safety as well. So I mean, there's some talent that didn't get to really see the field too much last year. But what you like from the DB room yesterday, Drew?
Yeah, speaking on Boylston, he had that fumble recovery. He had an interception late in the game. He was asked, is there any similarities between baseball and football? And he didn't really say there was too many, but one thing I was thinking was, dude, you're in the outfield for both. You're playing safety, you're playing in the outfield. It's got to be something out there. You're alone. You're reading where the ball is going to be. Boylston's he gets his hands on the ball, all the time. That's what you want out of a DB, a guy that can create turnovers. I was at the scrimmage I was watching. He dropped the pick in front of Chris Carter. I know he wants that one back, but he's a guy. He's a natural ball player in both sports, and super impressive. One guy I really liked, and he's been pretty impressive this spring from what I've been hearing and everything. Chris Tooley, he could play in the nickel. He could play on the outside. He was a guy that we saw his freshman year. A little more quiet last year. Didn't play as much, but super impressive. He had a big PBU. The first true fade ball thrown. I forgot if it was J.R. Wilson or one of the slot guys. I think it was Easton Messer actually is who he was covering. That's the one you really want to cover, because if you can cover that guy, you're pretty damn good. He had a fade ball on third down in the first drive when uh, Caden Veltkamp in the offense punted. Tooley was all over that. There was no explosive play there. So he's someone that I think super impressive. Derek Rogers Jr. is an alpha. Duda is his nickname. He's an alpha in that room. And then one guy I do want to shout out is Zion Perret, ZP they call him, number 18. Look out for him. He can contribute immediately as a freshman because he played great defense yesterday. No receptions allowed on his part. One flag for holding. He's a little bit grabby, but he plays sticky man coverage. So the DBs they were super impressive. And then I guess we'll talk a little bit more about the safeties besides Boylston.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to kind of see some of these young guys. Another guy that stood out to me at DB we didn't mention, Lawrence Johnson, played a lot of snaps
Yep.
last year as a freshman, which you never really you see it sometimes. We saw Tom Herman actually play a lot of freshmen, and then Chad as well, which not you don't see a lot, but he might potentially have turned that freshman playing time into a starting role. And good for him. And I'm kind of intrigued for this DB room. You don't want to put too much stock in the spring game as we were mentioning, but there's definitely potential. There's potential across the board. That's what kind of makes this season exciting. I don't know, necessarily how it will unfold, but we kind of ran through every position group here, but is there anyone that kind of stood out to you, Drew, that we didn't get to talk about at all? Is there anyone that's kind of a wild card heading into next season that could potentially be an impact guy,
I
offense,
got
defense?
Yeah, I got two things, and don't want to cheat on the second, but the first one I just want to shout out Jaden Williams, who's this is now his third different era of coaching changes. So just want to shout him out. Didn't think about leaving, had unfinished business, wanted to turn that page of what FAU football has been the last two eras. So just wanted to shout him out. He was a little more quiet in the spring game, but sometimes that's a good thing when you're a DB. You're not really making mistakes. That means. Second one, I just want to shout out. I'll cheat on this. I want to shout out the whole interior defensive line group. You said there was only 60 something rushing yards. They probably should have had double. The D tackles. There was a lot of runs up the middle that were just stuffed right away. One guy definitely got a shout out, Bryce Langston, who he was big. Big strides from last year. Last year was super quiet. Some guys overtook him. Transferring over from LSU. Langston, he's been an impact player all year. A leader too is someone that Coach Kitley's mentioned. Some other guys, Anisi Sledge and Najuan Barber, the two run stuff and defensive tackles that can also get after the quarterback. Those two, did really good against the run. And I know one guy I think that's going to be more of a pass rush specialist. He can play both, but he's a little slightly more undersized. Is CJ Doggett, a transfer from Ohio, who had some power conference looks, but really wanted to come to FAU. He'll probably be that guy that I think that he can get after the quarterback on the interior. Someone maybe a guy like for anyone who's an NFL fan, Ed Oliver is a guy that he's got the same exact measurables. A guy Walter Nolan's going to be drafted into the NFL in the top 20 picks in the upcoming NFL draft. So he's got that mold, a little slightly more undersized, but a little more twitched up. They can get after the quarterback. But I was super impressed with the defensive tackle group, a group that's very new to FAU fans, having longtime defensive tackles like Evan Anderson, Jaden Wheeler the last few years, Latrell Jean, etc. This is a very new group, and I think that they played very well in the spring game.
Lot to be excited about heading into next season. I mean, it's I personally, something I notice is I like the energy just around from the coaching staff. These are young guys, high energy. It just seems like they're clicking between the players and the coaches. It just seems like there's a really good relationship. And I mean, who knows what happens next season? But having a good quarterback that to go in Zach Kitley's offense can't go wrong. Obviously, other things can go wrong, but that's a good pairing in its own right. And I'm excited to kind of see what that unfolds. Maybe we break Bailey Zappi's record. Maybe we don't.
That
Who
would be
knows?
ideal. I would love 63 touchdowns.
That exactly that would be the ideal scenario. And maybe they'd be Maryland, and all of a sudden
That would be
this
really fun.
then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, these podcasts next year for once we for football will be a lot more fun than they were this season. We won't have to analyze losses. Hopefully, no loss analysis. But kind of shifting gears. Speaking of loss analysis, a little bit. As we mentioned in the opener, last time we talked to you about hoops was the NIT. And since then, obviously, FAU lost the NIT to Dayton, and the transfer portal opened up like a monsoon and just rained on FAU, and obviously. If you haven't been following along with us on our social media, a bunch of departures. Trey Carroll, the newest commit today to Xavier, Matas Vokatitis to Texas, Caleb Glenn to Michigan State, and then you have Leland Walker still in the portal. And am I missing anybody? Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. I had it listed.
Jaquel Powell just hit the portal.
Jaquel Powell, Jack Johnson, and then obviously Kiki and Ken are gone as well. So lot changed in terms of departures. I'm a little bit surprised about Matas leaving and Trey to some extent, but that's college basketball today. I mean, both those guys are going to go play for a lot of money, probably 6, maybe 7. Matas probably 7 for sure at Texas. I mean, Sean Miller's got FU money over there at Texas. He can give Matas that, and he might even come off the bench. But Drew, with the losses, is that concerning at all, or is it just the way of college basketball at this point?
I think it's just a state of college basketball. If there's any light you could take out of that, it's that these guys are going to listen to those programs, Michigan State, Xavier, and Texas. At least they're not going to. I don't want to throw any shade on anybody, but at least they're not going to. I don't know, UNLV. So it's not like we're really getting poached laterally or anything. These guys are getting massive pay raises, and hopefully it gets regulated soon for every fan and coach's sake. But right now, players are cashing in, and it's hard to really blame them when they can get money that they'd never make otherwise. But I wouldn't really say it's concerning. You want to be able to keep what you want to keep. But there's also a certain threshold that you just can't meet. If Caleb Glenn's saying, "Hey, can you pay me $600,000?" I think it's not really hard for John Jacobs to be like, "We wish you the best, but we could spend that $600,000 elsewhere." So, and I think that's what they're going to do. So,
yeah, I do have it up now. So FAU's got 7 scholarships open. One addition right now, Josiah Parker, freshman, who
yep.
very talented freshman recruit.
Super excited about him.
Yeah, brother of Damon Parker, top 50 guy, I believe. Definitely top 100 recruit.
Yep.
And so I think that's exciting. But yeah, so it's Ken Evans and Kiki Tandy, the graduates, and then KG Matas, Trey Carroll, Leland Walker, Jack Johnson, and Jaquel Powell in the portal. Portal's open for a couple more weeks. Fingers crossed that they are able to maintain Baba Miller, Nico Moretti, and Devin Vanterpool. If they're able to keep those 3, then they're cooking with something, right? I mean, then all of a sudden They've got three guys that Dev had some up and downs, but he looked really solid there towards the end, and his defense has been pretty good
Yep.
all season long. And then obviously Baba and Nico could be starting pieces. But in terms of visits, a couple guys in town this weekend. The big one, definitely in terms of star value, if you take that for whatever it is, Isaiah Elohim from USC, 6'5" guard. Didn't play too much last year at USC, was committed with Musselman at Arkansas, then followed him to USC. Didn't get in too much last year, but very, very athletic wing type of guy. Not much of a shooter, as more of a attack the rim type of guy. Think KG more without a shot. And so that could be an interesting addition. And then you've got Christian Henry from Eastern Michigan, another guard who's really been strong in his. I think it's 2 years at Eastern Michigan. I don't remember, but I know he averaged 14 a game last year. That's kind of, to me, looks like a two guard type of player, maybe one, but we saw last year moving Leland to the one at times wasn't the most ideal. He was a natural two. Got to kind of keep him there. And then came out yesterday that Steven Olawani from Southern Indiana, 6'8", 200-pound forward, big guy, potential Trey Carroll replacement as well. So obviously some talent coming in. That's not it, though. There's going to be some more, hopefully, here in the next couple of weeks. You want to see them move kind of as quick as possible. But we saw Jake has filled this roster out when it was bare bones, Drew. If Jake can kind of keep Baba Miller, Nico Moretti, Devin Vanderpool, are we confident that he can bring in some pieces around them and get us back to where we were last year and potentially build on that?
Yeah, if he could do that, all applause like this. Sorry, I had to show off the new soundboard, but yeah, I mean it's a better spot than last year for sure, where they had to start from ground zero and Trey Carroll. So this year, having a super talented big and having a guard that you trust, that's a big thing. A guard that you trust coming back, that at worst could be a really good bench piece coming off and be a potential sixth man of the year in AAC ball. Definitely a first or second, all AAC team kind of guy. But then, yeah, a lot of the guards you mentioned, you said Darian Ford, correct?
I didn't, but yes, I was supposed
Yeah.
to. Yeah, he was visiting yesterday, and so we'll see what happens with
Yeah.
that.
I mean, just without kind of watching film on a lot of them, but a guy like Isaiah Elohim, I just immediately heard top 100 recruit, went to a P4, kind of a crappier situation, had to transfer out of his freshman year, excellent athlete. But what does that sound like? It just sounds like Caleb Glenn. So that would be a really nice bring in, being able to get Caleb Glenn back pretty much, or a guy that's similar where he's one of the better athletes on the court is huge. And then, yeah, I mean, we just more guards. We need more guards that we could trust. I think the guys we brought in last year, no shade to them, but I don't know if they were ready right away for AAC ball or even out of conference ball. They weren't ready to gel right away. So we need some experience. We need some guys that are ready to fight right away. That are good ball handlers that can shoot when needed. A lot of these guys I really like being brought in. Just as guys that it's not even like they were failures or anything. They're just guys that are looking for a new spot and they're ready to come to work. And I think that we definitely with some of the guys, and then a few of them are unnamed because I think we have 7 spots open for scholarship players. I'm sure they'll be great as well. So, hopefully we get those guys in and, that they'll gel together well. But I haven't watched enough film yet, and we don't have all the names. So, but I'm sure we'll be proud of what we put on the court next year.
I'm hoping so. After we fill out this roster, the next step will be the schedule, which I'm also intrigued to see. If we can kind of build that out similar to how we have in years past, maybe harder to get as many Q1 opportunities, but get in a tournament, give you some opportunities there and maybe one or two other ones, and give yourselves a shot. And we'll see what happens. I mean, everything's year to year at this point, especially in basketball. With the smaller roster sizes, retention is tough compared to like football, for example.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm confident. Definitely a little bummed you don't get to keep Trey Carroll or Matas, but gotta accept that one and move on and keep an eye on FAU Owl's Nest on X for more transfer portal updates and hopefully some commit posts here in the next couple of days. In terms of other going-ons at FAU softball, in the midst of a bit of the first rough stretch of the season.
I'm doing the rough stretch, but we love our Lady Owls. They're awesome, but yeah, unfortunate losses.
We do. First series loss to North Texas, a first AAC series loss of the season after winning 5 in a row. But the Owls still should have a 3-game lead over USF in the conference standings for first place. And so, shout out Coach Clark and company. I believe they're like 35-7. I believe that's the record looking right now. So let me pull that up. But
7 or 8, something like that.
If you haven't tuned 34-9, I was close, but not close enough. 34-9. If you haven't been tuning in, it's been clicking across the board. There's pitching, there's hitting. You got a dominant closer, Ainsley Lambert. Pitching staff, Autumn Courtney, Gabby Sacco, Jade Martinez. 3 really capable pitchers, all can really pitch in a high-level situation, which is going to be important with the tournament coming up. And you got bats across the board. AAC Freshman of the Year from last year, Kylie Chanel, has been red hot lately. You got Jessiana Mora, who's one of the top third baseman bats in the country. And then new additions, Chloe Yates behind the dish has been raking. Bella Ferran out in the outfield, freshman, and Sierra Gibson as well, has all been swinging hot bats. So make sure to tune in to the series finale and get to the ballpark if you can. Go and check out Paradise Island in center field or left field, excuse me, because there's a lot of good ones.
We love Paradise Island. Shout out Hoot and Holler. He throws a great tailgate open to all, as long as you're respectful, of course. No bad people on Paradise Island.
You gotta be respectful. I will drop some information.
A lot of Paradise Loggers over there too.
If you like, if you like
Paradise Loggers, bring your own.
If you like, important people, Brian White was hanging out in Paradise Island today. It's where the cool people hang out. If you want to go hang out with the FAU athletic director, you got to go to Paradise Island there in left field. But you got to go crazy. Bring your own horn. If you got a horn, then make some noise out there. Make sure to go check it out. Shout out to Hoot and Holler and that crew bringing the vibes. And in terms of baseball's sitting comfortably 24-10 right now. Solid. They've picked things up lately. They swept ECU to start out April. Then now they're they lost one today to Memphis, which is a little stinker, but they can win the series tomorrow. And make that back-to-back series wins as well, which they need because they lost 3 in a row to UTSA. All hope looked to be lost. They lost 2 in a row to just one to FGCU, but 4 in a row overall with FGCU and UTSA. And then they rattle off 4 in a row against ECU and Florida Gulf Coast, and they can win this series versus Memphis. I think Coach Mack and crew have things back right. But a lot of successful spring sports here at FAU. Stay tuned over at the Nest. Drew Shula on X. We got FAU content across the board for you. You can check out mine too if you want. It's our La Stella report. You might get a picture of my dog on that one though. But make sure to stay posted. We got spring ball content from the past couple of weeks and yesterday on our accounts, and we'll have off-season updates for both football and basketball as well, folks. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Inside the Burrow. For Drew Shula, I'm Robbie La Stella. We'll see you guys next time.